Yes, we are. Good evening. Welcome to the Danvers Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. We operate under the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Chapter 26 of the Town of Danvers General Bylaw, the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. After the applicant presents his or her request and the board has had time to ask questions and discuss the project, we will accept questions from the audience. Because this is a public meeting, it is required by law that you give your name and address first. Although we may disagree on the issues raised, all persons present during this meeting are expected to be civil to all other meeting attendees. This includes members of the commission, staff, abutters, concerned citizens, property owners, and project applicants. Moving forward, we have a certain protocol we go through because of our COVID changes. So I'll start that off first with a roll call. So Michael Splain.
Here.
Ann McGill.
Here.
Chelsea King.
Here.
Vanessa Curran.
Here.
Peter Wilson, that's myself. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Georgia Pendergast.
Present.
David Fields.
Present.
Alicia Linehan.
Present.
Now, anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond that you are here. For lot 4-7 Holly Lane, John Moran of the Moran Cameron Group.
This is Scott Cameron pretending to be John Moran tonight.
Okay, welcome, Scott. 6 Carroll Way, Brendan and Ashlyn Malloy.
Here.
Okay, thank you. 4 Carroll Way, Ann Rafferty and Joe and Ashley Bono.
Scott Cameron will speak for that as well. Here.
Oh, okay. And for Whipple Hill, John Thompson and Annie Rafferty. I'm presuming it's going to be Scott once again.
It's me again.
Okay, and John is not here, is that correct?
John Moran won't be here tonight, nope.
No, John Thompson.
I don't believe he's coming tonight, nope.
Okay, good evening. This open meeting of the Danvers Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in publicly accessible physical locations. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town's website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. For this meeting, the Conservation Commission is convening remotely via the Teams app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Supporting materials that have been provided members of this body will be shown during this transmission. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Some basic meeting ground rules. First off, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call. Moving to the first item on our agenda, it's for a request for a certificate of compliance at 7 Holly Lane. which is Lot 4 of the Holly Hill Subdivision, DEP file number 14-1291. The applicants are Timothy and Catherine Burrill, and I believe, Scott, you are here to represent the...
Hi, yes, good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group. Good evening, also members of the commission. And yes, we submitted, this is the last certificate of compliance request for the subdivision for Lot 4. All of the other lots that were received permits from the commission have been finalized and closed out. This one, while we had things ready last year, grass was still not growing, and we got into kind of winter weather seasons and COVID, and hence the delay getting this back into the spring. So we want to make sure the grass was growing, everything was stabilized after the winter, and everything looks good and stable. In the cover letter that John Moran put together for you, he did identify eight items that were different from the approved plan. Again, these were consistent with kind of typical lot features that you saw on the other lots in the development. I think the one that was different was the developer ended up flipping the house footprint, and this was done as they're building out the lot one. He ended up putting a smaller house on the lot than what was on the approved plan. And then the way he configured the driveway, less filling and a somewhat flatter driveway to access the garage by doing it in the configuration that you see in the as-built plan. But overall, there's less impervious. They did not change the limit of work for the project, so the silt fence, everything stayed exactly as is. And again, everything on the lot and the finished area is really typical with residential use and the other lots that received their certificates of compliance in the subdivision. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Again, this is the last one, and this project is finished up.
Just one quick question. The street, we approved all the drainage and all over there. We have, Georgia? I thought so.
Correct.
I have no specific questions. Let me I'll go right along to the members. Mike, do you have any questions?
Not on this matter. No.
Ann, do you have any questions or comments?
Not on this project, no.
How about Chelsea
Nope, I don't have any questions.
and Vanessa?
I just want to ask Georgia if she's been to the site and is satisfied. That's all.
Yes, I went to the site today and no issues.
Thank you.
Good. I really have no further questions. So just me ask, put it out to the public if there's any questions from people online or any emails or phone calls.
No emails.
Okay, hearing none. If someone wants to make a motion, we can move right along on this.
I'll make a motion for certificate of compliance for 7 Holly Lane, department file number 014-1291.
The motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Vanessa,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
Peter, yes. Okay, that one is done.
Thank you.
Next up is an informal violation discussion. First up would be the Whipple Hill subdivision. The applicant for that is John Thompson, and I believe Scott is here representing John again as well. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Georgia to just run down the list of the noted violations and what has been done to rectify that situation, and then we'll proceed to our next steps following that. So Georgia, if you could just give us, a view from 10,000 feet of what we're looking at here.
Happy to, thank you. So the violation letter we had issued, we're now kind of referring you to more of a subdivision check-in at this point, because the order for the subdivision is still open and active. And there are some remaining aspects of the development to be complete. So what I had noted to Mr. Thompson and that Scott's going to speak to were kind of three big items. So the first one was just the maintenance of the stormwater structures and receiving the appropriate inspection reports. So to date, we've been receiving those on a regular schedule by Annie Rafferty as required. As you guys saw on your site visit, there are silt sacks in the catch basins. They are being maintained. I know today we had a little bit of an issue with some flooding, but again, it sounds like that's being addressed. That is, of course, going to happen. You're going to get leaves in the catch basins after rain events, but as long as they are being cleaned out and things are being maintained.
All right.
So that's what we're seeing happening. So that I had checked off. The Danvers stormwater permit from the engineering department had expired. So last we heard from engineering, the applicant had taken steps to file a new application, and engineering was reviewing that. And so the two big things, I guess, remaining that we had really discussed on the site walk was the wetland replication and the status of the stormwater basin right next to 6 Carroll Way by the cul-de-sac. So the wetland replication, as the commission saw on the visit, steps are being taken to get that started. The erosion control was installed. I met on site with John Thompson and Rich Kirby from LEC to talk about the replication work and how that will take place, where it will take place. And it sounds like the plantings are being scheduled and coordinated. But I had noted to Scott and the rest of the development team that I would like to see the replication work either happen coincidingly after or before the basin work. And that leads us into the other big kind of red flag item we had on our list, which was Basin P5B, as it's referred to on the development plans. And that's been holding water for quite some time. The Malloys had put in some aerators to deal with the standing water, which staff was aware of. And the reason for holding the water, from what we're aware of, is that the basin was used during construction, so it was dug a bit deeper than it was originally intended. So that's causing more room for water to stay. And also it's missing some components for alternate drainage, so there's an outfall that needs to also be installed. Once those are done and built according to the 2016 plan, engineering and staff, Concom staff are confident the basin will operate as it's supposed to. So that's the hopeful plan from the staff end. I know at the site visit, Mr. Thompson did bring up, propose to the commission for them to consider keeping it the way it is. That's not staff's suggestion, and I just wanted to make that more aware to the commission at the public meeting, that staff would, of course, support engineering and having the applicant finish the work to bring the basin to compliance. So after that, that long mouthful lead, those are the main issues up at Whipple Hill.
Oh, you covered them perfectly.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott, I'll give you a chance to comment on the progress of work over there.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Yeah, I really don't have much else to add. Georgia covered everything perfectly. Again, I'll just reinforce it. The detention pond we used during construction as a sediment trap. That was our kind of our last line of defense, and we wanted to make sure that we had that there. It made no sense to finish it if we're using it to trap sediment, loam it, seed it, do all that stuff. We wanted to have it there to be used and abused, and be able to clean it out periodically, so we're not having to redo the finished grading. Also, bring in the loam and whatnot. Every time we have to scrape it out, we got to bring new loam in, and it's just a big mess. So it was always intended to be the last thing finished on the project. And my expectation and understanding is that it will all be done together with the replication work. So the machines are coming in one last trip with the contractor. And it's just a matter of getting the materials, plants, labor, and everything in place, which is slow these days.
Okay. Let me just go around the members of the board and see if they have any questions or comments, and then we'll go from there. So Mike, I'll start with you.
Is, how far does that have to be brought up, Scott? Was it 2 feet?
Of course, things can change over time. We had done an as-built of it a year or two ago just to check the volume for construction and see what we were dealing with. I think on average it's about 12 inches. It needs to come up. There could be some spots that get, in the 18-inch range. But the berm as well needs to come up. So the berm, when I describe that, that's kind of the retaining feature. So that will also come up kind of coincident with the bottom of it. And the expectation is we have been monitoring the standing water level in the basin. So we have that elevation. We're going to bring up the bottom, to match that. And once it's finished, it'll be damp and moist on the bottom, but it'll be vegetated and secure. You can see even not doing anything, the cattails grow in pretty quick. I mean, that's just nature doing its thing. So that'll come back in. Oop, do I still have everybody?
You plan to bring it as originally purported or designed?
Yeah, yep, per the plan. We actually have the benefit here of we were able to as-built the outlet control structure. So we have that information, and so everything will be put in and per this plan that George is showing now. And sorry, I've got a bit of a headache.
Yeah.
So I got my vaccine earlier this afternoon. So.
Oh, geez, you're a trooper to be here.
Waiting for my delivery of painkiller to show up.
Oh, you're not supposed to take those. You have to suffer with it, Scott.
Oh, sorry.
Because
That-
that
that's
diminishes
the
the
only-
effect of the vaccine.
You won't want me suffering through this meeting with you, though. That's.
Yeah. That's the only question I had, except did you say when you expect to finish this?
The work is scheduled. Again, we're just trying to get the labor and the materials, everything in together. So we got to get, the plans need to be coordinated with the loam, the materials coming in to finish it. The stone for the overflow
So,
spillway.
like this summer?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think in the next month or so it should be done.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, no, we've been trying to get it coordinated since we last met. I think I said at the last meeting I wasn't confident it would be done by today. Because again, just everything's really slow these days. Supply chain, everything.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, next would be Chelsea.
I don't have anything. I was gonna ask about when it was gonna be finished too.
Okay, Anne, any questions or comments?
No, not in this case.
Okay, and Vanessa?
Yes, I just have a question about the Phragmites that are growing in it. Is there a plan to deal with those? And you mentioned that even when it's built up, it's still going to be damp. So I anticipate that's going to be a continued issue.
I hadn't observed any Phragmites. There's definitely cattails growing in there. That might have changed this spring. The cattails are growing. There is regular mowing for the basin, and that will keep the woody, bigger stuff. Even if common reed does establish in there, that'll keep that in check. It's nearly impossible to eradicate the root systems on those things. I think your commission or prior iterations of your commission has tried multiple times on projects to get rid of the Phragmite. They just kind of are. And I can't recall if they're upstream of this site too, but they could be growing. I think there's some knotweed upstream closer to the bayberry homes a little further up. And it's just, again, all this stuff just continues downstream. It's just kind of, once it's there, it's not going to go anywhere. But did you see Phragmites growing? I hadn't seen that yet. I had just seen the cattails.
So full disclosure, this is my neighborhood and it's been there for about 2 years, the Phragmites.
Okay, I haven't seen that. I've just seen the tufts of the cattails.
Yeah, there's both in there. There are, and mainly right now it just looks like cattails, but definitely other times of year and I feel like the frag established first prior to the cattails.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, one windy day and it can blow from anywhere. I think it's the frag is also up kind of towards the bayberry homes. There's a big, I want to say it's been a while since I've been up in that part of the property. But again, you get one windy day, it can blow from anywhere. That stuff,
Sure. So there's a routine mowing plan though for this.
There is, yeah, and that'll keep it in check.
And so once the road is accepted by the town, who is going to be doing the mowing?
The town maintains their own drainage systems, so there was a period of time where they were requiring homeowners associations to be formed and for the homeowners associations to maintain them. When we're going through this process, what was evidently clear is that the homeowner associations were not maintaining the ponds, and the town of Danvers wanted to own the basins and all the maintenance. So they're typically mowed, once a year, anyways. Twice a year is sufficient, just to keep the woody vegetation from coming in. And then, so that's the history of this particular one. In the other couple of subdivisions, it's been the same. The town will take ownership of the basins and the maintenance responsibility.
Okay, but until that happens, the developer is maintaining.
Correct. Yep,
Okay.
that's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
but same with this, and also there's not in your, it's outside your jurisdiction, but there's a swale at the end of Sandpiper. Again, it's functioning in a similar manner where it's the sediment trap right now. Once everything's finished, there's one more lot under construction. And so once that's done and John comes in for the finish closeout with the town for acceptance, there'll be a clean out, loaming, seeding, and stabilization. So Steve King's pretty regimented about getting the project as close to the shiny new car as possible before the town takes ownership. So
Okay,
haven't gone through a few of these with him.
that's all I have.
Okay. I have a couple questions. I heard that you had applied for the renewal of the Danvers Engineering stormwater permit. Has that been approved yet?
I haven't received it. I don't. A lot of times it's just a timestamp, and it's an automatic approval 30 days after submittal. The ones that we've done in the past have been that way.
Okay. Well, yeah. Before we sign off on all of this in a couple months' time, I will want to know that. That's.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then I think everyone's in favor of going along with sticking to the plan as far as the pond is concerned. So the Malloys expressed to us that they've taken to the fish as as pets of some sort. So they want to schedule something where they get as much fish out of that pond beforehand. So I think it would be very good if you could give them a firm date when the work is going to be done, so they can have get their action done. So as much notice as possible. I mean, not 3 days. Give them a couple weeks if at all possible.
Yeah, I would say it's sufficient notice. I know Mr. Malloy's on, but he said the work could be going within the next 2 weeks if we're lucky with the materials and everything. So I would be prioritizing that, and I'm happy to offer some assistance or input on that, as I've tinkered with fish as a hobby for the last 30-something years. So, but my understanding, I guess he's on, so I can see him.
I'm here.
So I don't know what the plans are, if he's got anything going.
Can you hear me, Scott?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I didn't know if you could hear me. Yeah, all right, thanks. I mean, so I'll get going on making my preparations to be ready to go once you guys start draining that. So yeah, we're just gonna do our best and try to save as many fish as we can.
Okay.
Brendan, Mr. Chair, if it's okay, I just want to let Mr. Malloy know that if he wants to contact me offline, I can put him in touch with a company that specializes in this, that I've worked with in the past.
Okay, that's Scott.
Okay, good. I'm not sure we need it, but I'm going to ask for it anyways. Is there any input from the public? Anyone have any comments or questions?
Yep.
Yeah, I see Matt Duggan with his old school raised hand, not the team's raised hand, but go ahead, Matt.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just back to the pond and the roadway. So what is the correlation between those two in terms of the roadway acceptance? So is the pond is there an attachment, a legal attachment between the town accepting the pond and accepting the roadway?
Mr. Chairman, I could
Scott?
answer that.
Go ahead, Georgia.
Yeah, so the stormwater structures, once the town accepts the roadway, they will then take responsibility not only for the roadway, but also for the various, I think it's 2 stormwater basins, the catch basins, and any other stormwater components. So this pond that we are calling it a pond, but it actually is a stormwater control structure that will have a deeded easement to the town for their responsibility. So the roadway conversation, when we say the roadway, essentially the order of conditions permit for the roadway also included the stormwater structures that were in the commission's jurisdiction.
All right. So these, so I forgot to identify myself. So my name is Matthew Duggan. I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 1. And I mentioned that because the roadway acceptance is actually happens at town meeting. It's not through any town department. So these retention ponds, I'm not familiar that there are a number of them in town. They seem to be outliers. So maintaining them, and it's not just that pond, right? It's on the other side of that bridge on the west side. That area would need to be maintained as well in terms of keeping that area clear in terms of saplings and fallen logs. I saw a number of logs actually that were laying on the ground. That would interfere with the water flow. So it seems to be very labor intensive to ask the town DPW to go in there on a regular basis. It sounds like once or twice a year. That's an expensive undertaking, I think, in terms of manpower. So is that something that was taken into consideration when the commission approved this feature?
Go ahead, Georgia.
So I'll actually have David jump in just based on his experience with the average amount of basins the town inspects, but I will say it's not uncommon, especially I would say in the older subdivisions. It's most likely you've seen them, but you don't recognize them as detention basins. They're most likely overgrown a bit or have just been mowed and they look like a grassy depression, but that is what they are essentially supposed to look like. A lot of the time they're not supposed to look like what we saw on the site visit. So maintenance in that aspect would look a bit different. It really is mowing once or twice a year, and through Danvers Engineering taking on that responsibility, they have that requirement just for their own stormwater standards to maintain all the catch basins in town, the culverts, and that falls under that maintenance schedule.
Okay.
If I could jump in, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add that we used to have homeowners associations doing it, but it wasn't getting done or it wasn't getting done right, and it's better to have the town do it.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep. So just one last comment. So I'm used to seeing retention ponds in Florida where they are like grassy kind of depressions that are utilized during major thunderstorms or whatever. This doesn't look like that at all. This is more of like a pit, right? A 10 or 15 foot deep pit. So that's why I mentioned the being labor intensive of getting the crews in there. But if the commission's already kind of signed off on it, then I guess it's already been discussed.
Yeah, I don't think it's much out of the ordinary, Matt.
Okay. All right. Good enough. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public domain? Hearing none. Let me ask Scott another question. Do you think that you would have the pond finished and the reclamation area finished by May 27th? That's what we're shooting for.
I would hope the same as you. I would hope the same as you. And if you're thinking about a continuation date, I would suggest May 27th is safe. And if it's not, we can always push it out 2 weeks to the next meeting. But we're trying to get it done this spring because it's really tough to get the plants to take when you're doing it in the summertime. So everybody's aware of that. And George, I'm sure you talked about that with Rich and the contractor when you did your site visit with them. about the timing of this. So
Okay, so you're agreeable to that, and I'm just going to
yeah,
presume that other members of the board are comfortable with you coming back on the 27th. We don't really need to vote on anything, and we can just let this issue lie for this evening. If anyone of the board has a differing opinion, just let me know. Otherwise, we'll just move on. Hearing none. Okay, so Scott, we'll look forward to seeing you on the 27th, you
Okay.
and John, and hopefully all this will be done. Good, thank you. Next up is 6 Carroll Way, a request to amend their order of conditions, DEP file number 14-1303. The applicants are Joseph and Ashley Bono. And like we did on the previous item, I'm going to ask Georgia, first of all, to go down the laundry list of the violations and the actions that have been taken to correct them, and then we'll go from there. So go ahead, Georgia.
Thank you, Peter. I just want to correct you. So on my agenda, I have 6 Carroll Way next, which is going to be Brendan Malloy. Sorry, the posted.
Sorry.
You may be looking at the draft agenda that I sent with the memo, but the posted agenda has.
Actually, this one I took off of the memo. My bad. So
No, that's
it's good. I appreciate that.
So I'm going to jump in with Mr. Malloy, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So 6 Carroll Way, as the commission saw on the site visit, had some minor violations that I noticed when I went to inspect the violations at 4 Carroll Way. So when I went in the backyard, I happened to look across the way and saw the fence area. So the kind of 3 big ticket items we had observed on the site visit was the fence being within the 35 and the 50, and the playhouse and the swing set area, kind of those minor amenities being added without a minor project permit, or at the time what would have been an RDA or permission. And then the other issue was leaves have been blown back from a substantial amount of wetland area and buffer zone area. It sounded like with a leaf blower just done on the weekend, and connected to the issue with the basin, and that the basin was having a lot of water running off, more than what was anticipated. The Malloys had kind of created a rock channel to channelize the water to the existing intermittent stream. So what we had discussed on the site visit was that those minor items weren't much of an issue, but bringing that area back to just natural what it was before and leaving it alone was definitely preferred with the commission for mediating that part of the violation. And I think that was about it for the big items that I had noted in the violation letter.
Okay, and the Malloys are here representing themselves. Do you have any comments, Brendan? Or
only that I did get an as-built site plan from Warren Cameron, and it details just the changes from the previously approved site plan. I'm happy to walk through that if you guys want. And you know, it was great meeting you guys at the site visit. Whatever you guys want me to do to be in compliance, I'll do that.
do you have a plan that you want to present to us?
That would be great. Yeah, do you want me to just share my screen?
Yeah, if you're comfortable doing that, sure.
Sure. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so this right here is the as-built site plan. I also have, you can kind of see this is the previously approved site plan, so you can kind of see the differences. But basically, in a nutshell, the house is 49 feet from the wetland versus 50 feet, which was on the previously approved plan. We added, there's 2 small landscape walls here, one right next to the garage, and then another one right near the deck here.
I'm not seeing that. Can you point those?
Yeah, sure. So it's right here. Let me see if I can do the pointer. You see right to the bottom of the house, right to the left, this little retaining wall?
Yeah.
And then there's another one there. So this was just so that the step from the garage back to the garage was level. And then this one was added so that the air conditioner units had a level ground to sit on. This deck was just moved back. So the deck was moved to the westerly end of the house, and it's 10 feet further from the wetland than previously approved. And the deck stairs were put up here at the top rather than the other side. So the stairs were built outside the buffer zone. Then there was the riprap slope, the boulder wall, which is right along that little play area there. It was built between 33 and 50 feet from the wetland line, where 25 feet was proposed, so built further back. You can see, and you noticed at the site visit, you know, the chain link fence was added along the limit of work line. Right. So it's within the limit of work, not beyond it. And then I added the playhouse and the swing set in that little sort of flat area at the bottom. The landscaping paving stones were added along right here next to the garage, leading out to the back, and they end right here. And a vinyl fence was just added right here just for safety purposes, because it's about a 8-foot drop from that upper level down to that lower level. So just a white post and rail fence was added there.
Is that what that crosshatched area is? Just beneath the fence? Is that to signify a drop off?
Well, that's the boulder wall there. That's the stacked boulder wall, which was originally, I'll go to this original plan. Let me just zoom in. You can kind of see that it was just a riprap, sloping riprap. That was on the original plan, but then what was actually done, he stacked boulders, and that allowed that lower area to be, just a flat part that was like a lower tier. So you had the upper tier, stacked boulders, and then a little lower tier here.
Okay.
And then this is that 60-foot long channel, that was, as I mentioned, it was more, stones were placed for aesthetics, because the water, when it rushes out, when the pond overflows, it just shoots to the stream. It's, as you notice, it's a pretty steep slope there, so the water goes to the stream.
Now, is there something to be finished there as part of the pond finishing?
Not that I know of. I think that when the pond is finished, it's not gonna drain as fast. There won't be much at all. Maybe when the heavy rain does come, there's still, the drainage sort of this part right here, that when the water level gets too high, it goes through that pipe and it drains out. But as far as I'm hearing, with this extra spillway that is going to be added here, that's going to, it's going to push the water more to the wetlands down in this side rather than go into that overflow drain.
Okay, good. That's good.
Yeah. And then, the 1760 square feet, this whole area was cleared. Obviously that you guys know the story behind that. Won't be doing that again. And then these concrete pads, this is just what the air conditioners sit on. So concrete pads were put right here to the left of the house, right near the deck. And then the dry walls weren't installed, but the dry wells weren't installed, but two downspouts, they daylight out. One daylights out it goes under the driveway and daylights out right on this riprap slope. And then the other one daylights out right at the top of where that the channel is. So it's not much water flow comes out at all, but they're underground. When I originally moved in, the gutters just spilled onto the driveway and onto the yard. So I contracted landscapers and just had them go underground. So they're functioning well, and it doesn't seem to be an issue there. And lastly, the impervious area in the buffer zone was reduced by 1,000 square feet. from the previous plan. So originally it was 5,500 square feet shown on the approved plan, but it's now 4,500 square feet. So 1,000 square feet less of impervious.
Okay, good. So you've learned the lingo. You know
You
how to.
know, if you need some help, I mean, I might have a future in this. I've learned a ton about conservation, and I truly appreciate it. Georgia, I mentioned in the last call, but yeah, she's been excellent to work with throughout the whole process.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, Brendan. All right,
You're
let me just go around the board and see if there's any questions or comments, and then we'll move on. So let me start. Actually, we'll just change the order a little bit. Let Vanessa. Do you have any questions?
I'm actually out for this one and the next one.
That's right.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Okay, Chelsea.
Hang on, sorry.
You're all set?
Yeah, I think I'm all set.
Okay, Ann, any questions or comments?
No, I think what we saw really was very helpful, and the stones leading the water right down to the stream itself made sense. And I have no problem with the swing set in the little fenced area there for the kids. And the reduction by 1,000 square feet there is excellent. Thank you. That's all, Peter.
Okay, and Mike.
Yes. To Brendan, assuming that the new outlet solves your water problem, will you be removing the channelized stones that you had set out?
If there's no water coming out and yeah, I could definitely do that.
Yeah.
I guess we'll wait and see how it's done and during heavy rain, and if that is dry, then that would be great, and I'll get those stones right out of there.
And the other thing, I know you was your father-in-law or someone, you spent a weekend blowing the leaves out, and we need those back there. I guess this is to George. Are we waiting for the leaves to fall, or how are we handling that?
So I think we had kind of discussed just leaving that area as it is, leave it alone, possibly putting up erosion control along the fence line until you get some good, like at least some ground coverage, some grub that's fallen. So it may be up for the summer and the next fall season until we get some cover there, and then you can remove the erosion control. But I think we can leave it as it is now. That would be my suggestion, but put up erosion control as
Do we have a plan for the erosion control until that happens?
you guys could discuss that now. I would suggest that.
Yeah. Well, I think I would go back to staff. I mean, where would you place the erosion control, and what would it consist of?
Brendan, do you mind pulling up that plan again?
Yeah.
Sure. Yep.
So I think the elevation, it's not too steep there. I think just a good thick compost stock would be suitable. Probably along the line of, so he had blown into the wetland area a bit too. So it doesn't show on the plan exactly where the leaf cover was taken off, but I'm happy to work with Brendan on site. It'll be pretty obvious to us on site where exactly it should go, but it would be anywhere between the naked area and the existing wetland now to make sure any of that soil and mud doesn't run off and make a mess.
Brandon and Georgia, those nice compost socks that John Thompson has there now.
Yep.
Those and they just sort of break down over time by themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
put it right along the fence line there.
All right, and I'd be happy if you did that and address the stones if there's no longer a water issue. So that's my input. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, do we want the erosion control around the perimeter of the cleared area? I mean, there's dirt there that's exposed to erosion through whatever.
Yeah, I think that wording would be good. And again, I can work with Brendan on site to figure out exactly where it should go and how much he should get.
Okay. Okay, that's it for members of the commission, right? Is there anybody I've forgotten? Are there any questions or comments from the public?
Looks like you have your hand raised, Peter. from Scott.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Quickly scanning and see.
Wait.
Go ahead, Scott.
Mr. Chair, Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group, 66 Elm Street. We did the plan for Brandon, but I just wanted to, I guess, make one comment. The heavier duty mulch socks have to be installed by a contracting company. And just as a function of practicality for Mr. Malloy, I suspect he's going to have a hard time getting a contractor to put those in versus being able to drive down to like Middleton Supply and pick up hay wattles, which again, when he can put those down himself, and when they are wet, when it's raining out, they compress down as efficiently as the mulch socks. It's a smaller area. Just a recommendation. I don't want to see him get stuck waiting weeks for an erosion company to come out and put those mulch socks in. That's it.
Okay, good. Thanks. Well, when you guys are talking fish, you can also talk the erosion control.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, anyone else in the public have any comments? No? All right. So this is just an informal discussion, so there's really no vote for us to say. I think we probably are within our realm to offer a suggestion to the Malloys that they do a couple things and they come back to us with a request for a certificate of compliance. So the things that we are, actually, I'm going to have Georgia go through the list because she's probably a little more familiar with it, but there's like 3 or 4 different conditions that we'd like to see them do, and then come back probably at our next meeting or in 2 meetings time with a request for a certificate of compliance, and then we can just get this whole matter closed. So Georgia, if you could just list what you thought would be the appropriate conditions, and then we'll just see if there's anyone, members of the board, have anything else to add or comment on, and then we'll just let it go with that.
Yes, thank you. So the first one would be suggesting that the applicant come back at the next meeting with a certificate of compliance request. So that would be May 13th. I think that's more than enough time for Brendan, considering he has the as-built. He would just have to fill out the form. So that would be come back by May 13th with a certificate of compliance. And then I had put in there evidence that the wetland area, that steps were taken to bring the wetland area back to its natural state. So with that, we could say when you come back on the 13th, maybe give us an update on your erosion control, if it's been installed, ordered, etc. And then, sorry, I'm just reading another note here. And I had also suggested that no disturb markers be placed along the fence you have up now. So those are just small placards that we will provide to you. You place them out about every 20 feet or so, and it says, you know, beyond this area is a wetland, do not disturb. So of course you guys will be there for however long you are, but the next homeowner, if there is one, just to keep them informed. So if you're able to do those 3 things by the next meeting, I think that would close out what I had suggested would close out the violation issues.
And the 4th one was the erosion control around the perimeter of the cleared area. The applicants are Joseph and Ashley Bono, and I believe Scott is here representing the Bonos. Georgia, let's do this one more time. If you can just go through the laundry list of the violations and what's been done to correct those, and then we'll open it to discussion.
Great, thank you, Peter. So we do have some pretty larger violations that were discovered earlier this year, specifically the Lot 4. So we do have some structural changes that were added and increased in the buffer, and we do have some stormwater changes in the buffer. But I do want to preface that there was another issue with the swale on site that coincides with subdevelopment stormwater, and that is outside of the commission's jurisdiction. It's outside of the 100-foot buffer. There are some components that do run into the buffer and discharge to the wetland, which Scott can speak to, but that portion is being handled by engineering. So for what we discovered in the buffer zone that was not approved, as a note, this applicant previously was before us for an amendment already. So this will be the 2nd amendment, what I'm calling after the fact, considering things have already been installed. So the driveway was widened and curbing was installed, and that added about 1,500 square feet of unimproved impervious in the buffer, with runoff directed towards Carroll Way into the existing stormwater system for the subdivision. And then we also had some unauthorized structures, what we could refer them to be. Some are patios, then we have a bocce ball area, but those are crushed stone, and it looks like wood. We had a 300 square foot sand joint permeable paver added, and then the bocce ball court was 150 square feet. We also had some issues noted in not knowing where the drainage had been installed. I know a couple dry wells were installed and a couple pipes, but we're unsure of where those drain to, where they're connected to. Our engineering division was not present for installation or inspection of those. And we also had issues with erosion control. There is some left over from the existing job, but it's in disrepair. It needs to be replaced. And there was also stockpiling of materials in the buffer zone, just active kind of construction mess in the backyard. It also looked like the applicant had encroached onto the neighboring property, and it sounds like they're working with the Archdiocese to purchase additional land from them to increase their property. Again, a portion of that was not in the buffer zone, but just for the overall sake of the violations the town noted on the site, that was one of them, was the encroachment. So I think that pretty much covers the majority, but it really, what the commission was concerned with was the driveway. That was a lot of added impervious. That was definitely not discussed and accounted for. So with that, I'll leave that to you, Peter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Georgia. Scott, let me give you a chance to speak to any comments that you'd like to make.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you. For the record, Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group. Ashley and Joe Bono are here tonight, as well as Ashley's father, Bob White. So we're all here to talk about this. Again, I think the letter I submitted to you, along with the request for the modification, outlines the discrepancies that we identified during the course of conducting an as-built survey of the property. Between our last meeting and this meeting, we submitted the plan to you. A couple of the notable things, there had been also some discussion about the retaining wall, and I did identify that the height of the wall is about 2 feet higher on average than what was on the approved plan. The reason for this is the contractors are going through recognizing that we had actually included a fill slope that extended, further down towards the wetland, and they didn't do all that filling in the wetland. They actually kept even though the silt fence went in, they actually didn't clear about 3,000 square feet of buffer zone that had been on the approved plan. So they, in effect, kind of pulled the limit of work out right up along the wall. But to do that, they extended the wall by a couple of block courses to minimize, to account for that. The wall is still there. The wall was put in nearly the identical spot as what was on the approved plan, plus or minus a few inches here and there for anticipated construction, tolerances. The riprap that was identified in the notice, or the extension of the wall that was identified in the notice, was actually they just used rock to make a steeper slope in that area so that they could get access around the side of the house. And again, this is all occurring in the outer, 30 feet or so of the buffer zone. They didn't go past the limit of work. The limit of work stayed where it is, where it was on the approved plan. And then the other items, again, there were changes that were made during construction with regards to the retaining walls and the patio area, the bocce court. The bocce court, I don't know. That's kind of a yard accessory. It's crushed stone. It is in the buffer zone, but it is permeable. But it's within the limit of work in the yard area. And then the driveway, the changes that were made to the driveway were done out of concern about they wanted to get 2 cars by each other. It came up as they were building the driveway, that was my understanding. And while they had the paver there, they widened it during that process. But everything was graded properly down to the road. The driveway was always intended to go down to the road. And I actually kind of like how they did it with the curb, because we're not relying on, kind of the landscaped edge to kind of swale and channel where you could have some erosion issues over time. The curb is definitely not going to go anywhere. So we know that the water is going to get to the road where it was intended to go. They installed a few dry wells. I don't have underground locations. One of them was supposed to be near in the buffer zone to the, I guess it would be the off the side of the house closest to the wetland. That dry well wasn't put in that location. They actually put it on the complete opposite side of the house, well outside the buffer zone. Still trying to track down some photos of that. I did get some photos of the one that was put in under the bocce court. It's almost right in the middle of the bocce court near the rear lot line. Again, that one was out of the buffer zone. And then with respect to the swale and the grading, we're still working through that. So I think we talked about it a little bit in the past, but the background of that is when we put the subdivision plans together originally for this, we show kind of recommended grading for the house lots. That this is recommendations as we're going through the roadway design. Just on, you should probably consider doing this to make everything drain properly, so we don't have any issues between neighbors with puddling and ponding and things like that. As the lots were built out, until Joe and Ashley came in, they were one of the last lots to be built out. The other lots had already been built out, and they didn't really follow the grading too well. So we ended up in this situation where we're trying to figure out how to mitigate it, and we're still trying. So what was done, and again, this was outside the buffer zone, but what was done, they did not change. The area that was kind of draining through here, it's all yard area. It's not driveways, some roof areas, but what we consider clean runoff. This is yard runoff. Everything is going where it's supposed to go. It's going out the same location. They ended up running it through a pipe that they set in crushed stone, and they put a dry well in here in that area as well to create some additional storage in that area. And that pipe was added to the plan because the pipe was built. They need to adjust the location of it a little bit, just pull it closer to the house. But the pipe is conveying that yard runoff to the same location that it had been originally on the plans as kind of a swale or an open flow drainage flow. And we're still working through. We did conduct some additional survey of the abutting properties just to get a handle on what was built. And so we're working with a few different property owners, the Bonos, Tulis. We got to work with the town engineer just to kind of reconcile this, making sure everything is working. But we are still working through that process. It's a lot of coordination to try and to work out with the various owners involved. But I think at the end of the day, everything's going where it's supposed to go. It's changed how they're getting it there. Other than that, I know they did update the silt fence and fix that. I know they did come in and try to clean up some of the exposed areas that were on the edge of the buffer zone. It was just unfinished. The landscapers hadn't been in yet, so they have been doing that to get things cleaned up and work towards stabilizing the buffer zone area in particular. And they're requesting a modification to the permit, to the order conditions. Again, we outlined everything in the letter, and I'm happy to answer any questions I can from the commission. Again, I think up until this recent time frame, the Bonos have been very open and trying to work with the town to get things done properly. And this work happened over the last year during COVID. It happened. They understand it. They approached me last August when they recognized that they had gone off plan. We had started this process coming into the fall, and then we got the notice in December from Georgia, who also saw this. So, again, I think they want to make it right. They're here tonight. I'm sure we'll answer any questions we can. And like I said, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make, I'm not sure why we, 2 points that 2 observations. I'm coming from the site visit one. the patio seemed to me to be a lot bigger than 300 square feet. And the bocce court was far and above over 150 square feet. So that being said, I'm going to pass it along to the members of the commission for their questions or comments. And then we'll see where we go at the end of that. Okay, so I'll start with Mike. Any questions, Mike?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, Scott just was talking nonstop and we didn't have anyone out there to I really think I need to go back out there and have him point out everything he just went through. He just kept talking. He just went through this whole thing, basically telling us what's wrong and why it's good that it came out this way. I'm still concerned that the driveway's big, that no swale was installed, that they're on someone else's property, that the neighbor's getting water, that the bocce ball court. I want him out there and show me, basically somebody's father was out there welcoming us, but we didn't have any guidance from him. And where was he when all this was going on before? I mean, to me, this is egregious. I mean, what kind of conservation commission will we be if we just allow all this stuff, after the fact? It bothers me. And that's how I feel about it. I think I need to go back out there.
So that's a comment, right, Mike? Not a question. Yeah. Okay, you all set, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, Ann.
But actually, I've only been here a year, so I wasn't here for the 2019 or 17 construction, so I don't know what was actually on the plan. What I noticed is there's just so much what I call masonry. And I was wondering if the walls that run up to the house and then also the wall around the bocce court was part of the original plan. Because it seems like just a lot of masonry that's very close to the edge of the conservation drop-off, if you will.
Scott, could you answer that, or the Bonos?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that. Georgia, do you have the? I submitted a comparison plan between the approved and the.
If you just want to give me a second, I can pull it up. You can continue.
Sorry, I presume you have the plan in front of you, folks. So if any time, I don't know what the protocols are on the remote meeting as far as who shares what. But Mr. Chair, just to clarify your comments on the patio and the bocce court, you are correct. They are larger than bocce is larger than 150 square feet, and the patio is larger than 300. Those numbers reflect the change in the buffer zone. Just want to clarify that. So I only identified the area in the buffer zone, not the whole site. I didn't get into everything. The fact that they didn't build the shed. There was a 25 by 25 foot shed that was outside the buffer zone. That's not built there. So I just want to clarify that. With regards to the masonry, again, the 100-foot buffer line in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So all this work is on what I would say the outer edge. It's past even the new setbacks, the 3550. We're well outside of that. So the work never went any closer to the wetland than the originally approved silt fence.
Okay.
The exception being, the foundation drain, which is noted on the plan, where they brought it out to catch the invert coming down the slope. But they never extended past the limit of work. They never did any more. And what I was explaining before is the area on the kind of the top middle of the plan where we show the clearing coming down right up to the 25 no disturb setback. They never did any of that work. They never cleared down. There's about 3,000 square feet of buffer zone that they preserved. And they did that by increasing the height of the wall by 2 feet. So they didn't have to clear it and fill it to make up the grade. So they chose to, instead of clear, to add another course of block to the wall. So the 3,000 square feet of buffer zone preservation, I would say, is a significant improvement over what was originally approved.
Excuse me, Scott. What do you consider, or how do you define a 3,000 square foot improvement? It seems to me that you just avoided disturbing it for construction purposes.
Well, they had an approval. They could have cleared that area, so they could have cleared it and put yard in there. They didn't do that. So I would say, based on what was approved by the commission, they did less work. So when we look at the interest of the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw on preserving buffer zone, they preserve more buffer zone. I would suggest that that is in the best interest of those regulations and statutes. So I was just identifying that there were changes made, but they weren't all negative. They weren't all bad. Some were actually in the commission's favor for the interest you look at.
Okay.
Okay, that kind of helps. I do have a question about what I call the, well, I'm assuming you're calling the wall those brick, not brick, cement blocks that are put into the side of the, is that correct? Is that what you're calling the wall? Into the side of the hill there?
There was stone. You talk about the
cement
stone-
blocks, the cement blocks that are put in the
Yeah.
side. Yeah,
Those
okay.
are, I think they're further, there's two types of blocks that they did. The one supporting the driveway were larger. They're about 1 ton concrete blocks that you put into place. Those were supporting the driveway. In the back, where the patio and the bocce are, they use smaller blocks that are more decorative. They're landscape blocks, so those are about 8 inches by 12 inches. Those would be off the side of the house and in the rear yard.
Okay, so the purpose of the blocks is to shore up the hill. Is that correct?
Yes, they flatten the yard in that area. Yep.
Okay. Okay, is this using concrete blocks after I learned all about the conservation replication? The concrete blocks somehow don't look like conservation replication to me. Was that the only method that was available to use on the side of the hill that's overlooking the conservation area?
I think I understand your question.
Yeah.
So the blocks were used so they flattened the yard, so they didn't have a steep, kind of grass slope.
Mm-hmm.
On the lower side of this wall, that would the buffer zone would come up to that. Yep, there you go. So there's a couple different ways. So there was a little more fill in the outside edge of the buffer zone, right? So they raised the grade up, so there's a little more fill brought in. On site, it's material that was on site. They didn't have to import here. It was material from the foundation excavations on the property, so they made use of it on the property instead of trucking it off.
Okay, so that change in the grading was already approved. Is that correct?
They brought it. No, they changed. They brought when they built the walls, they brought the grade up slightly in that area. So the original approved grade there was about 146, and the grade it was approved at 140, 146 to 148, and the grade in the finished condition is about 149 to 150. You can see the 150 contour, which comes into the wall, and then that slopes down. You're about 149 at the top of it, so about 3 feet higher just in that corner. But again, they didn't go past the limit of work, so they didn't change the limit of work line there. So the natural slope going down to the wetland throughout most of the buffer zone in that area, because the wetlands kind of flare away from the house as you go deeper into the lot. So they, that's everything in there remained in its natural condition.
Okay. So what is the impact, for example, if we have a strong storm and waters are rushing down, what is the impact of having those stones there? Are they going to retain water? Are they going to prevent flooding? They're supposed to hold up the slope, but what are they doing in terms of storm weather?
So when we build any retaining wall, when it's done properly, as these were, behind the wall, there's going to be gravel and there's going to be a pipe. And so any water that's in the ground will get into this pipe and it drains out. And in this case, they daylight, and that's the pipe that's off the end of the patio. From an erosivity perspective, when water travels over land, the steeper the land is, the faster the water travels, and the faster it travels, the more erosivity it can create. So by flattening it, I would say that above the wall, because it's flatter, it's actually going to be more capable of getting that water into the ground because it's flatter and it's letting it kind of sit there versus run down the hill. So again, it's there's some benefits and there's some negatives to it. The negatives being fill, being a structural wall. There is a wall there, but it's pretty far away from the wetland, itself. Even under the current regulations, it's well outside the 50. Where that's located, it's about we're talking about 75 to 80 feet away from the wetland. It's right on the outer edge of the buffer zone.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All set, Ann?
Yes.
And I
Can I
apologize.
say something?
Oh, 1 second, please, ma'am. Let me just, Chelsea, did I call you? I'm just showing my age here.
No, you didn't, but I actually don't have any further comments or questions.
Okay, Ashley, you want to make a comment?
Oh, hi. Hi, yes, my name is Ashley for Carroll Way. I just wanted to speak to the wall. That wall, my house would not be accessible without that wall having been built. That wall was constructed not by us, by the people that built the whole neighborhood. And the stone that was used was not chosen by us. It's consistent with the bridge and the wall that's on the other side that leads into 6 Carroll Way. So we did not choose this stone or this block. This was all done long before we were ever even gain access to house. Without that wall, we would not have had a driveway. So, in the fact that it's actually higher, we also had nothing to do with that. The whole construction of that wall was done by Cheryl in DCAM, and we did actually, as you can see on the plan, I'm not exactly sure how many feet it went beyond, but we had to do that because it was so steep there. Like my kids would have fallen off there and someone would have gotten really badly hurt. So we had no choice really but to bring that wall back down. We got in touch with someone to put those same stones down a little bit further so there wouldn't be such a steep cliff there. And also so our land and all the dirt wouldn't go down into the wetlands and disturb anything down there. And we felt like the curb did the same thing. It's actually taking all the runoff water down into the street and sending it to the storm drain. And we felt like that was something that was also going to help the wetlands, and that's why we did that.
Yeah. Again, just to clarify, what she's describing there is the concrete wall is the same material that was used for the wetland crossing that was extended up along their driveway. What she's describing is the wall that was built to get the driveway access up into the property, and that was built very, very close to what was approved in the first modification. The difference being that the height it's 2 feet higher, which flattened it out on the driveway a little bit. And then as they were grading around the side of the house, they used some stone just to continue leveling that off. I think the plans had it just kind of graded with earth coming down, but they used stone to again level it off a little bit better and make it a little safer around the house. So that was a decision, from what I'm hearing, Ashley, to make it a little safer for your children to be able to get around the side of the house.
Okay, Scott, just
Okay, thank you.
just fill me in on the timeline here. The original wall was built as part of the development work?
No, it had its own notice of intent for the lot.
And who was the property owner then?
I don't know the exact history back then. Once we got the permits, I want to say, I can't remember the timing at that point. It was a few years ago.
Okay.
But as Ashley said, it was the same contractor that built the crossing for the road built this wall. That's why it's the same material.
To the height that it's at now, or to an original height?
Yeah, he had built that. That's what he had built. So instead of filling and bringing in fill material and filling down as we had originally on the plans, he built the wall a little bit higher. He felt it was more, whatever it was, he felt it was more economical. It was less impact. He's going to do less clearing. I wasn't involved with that decision.
Well, here's where I'm coming from, Scott. There was an original order of conditions, and then there was an amended order of conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And is this driveway, as it's built now, was that part of the amended order of conditions?
No, it's wider than what it was on the amended order conditions.
And the wall is higher.
And the wall is a block course higher, correct?
Right. Okay. Okay. Before we go any further, are there any members of the public that would have to ask any questions or make a comment? And I see Matt Duggan with his hand up, in both the conventional and the manner. So go ahead, Matt.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matthew Duggan, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Just a couple of observations. First, at the rear of the property along that bankment, it's actually on the diocese property where it appears that soil has been disturbed and actually pushed over the edge down towards this intermittent stream. So is that part of the conversation here about work that's actually occurring or occurred that's not actually on the applicant's property? Or is that out of scope?
Right now, I think it's kind of out of scope. We're pretty much talking about what's within our jurisdiction. You know, there are some other extenuating circumstances here. The work, outside of the boundary lines and the stormwater in the backyard. But we're trying to concentrate our thoughts on what's within our jurisdiction.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this, Mr. Chairman, on the plan that was just shown a short while ago, there were at the front of the house on the left side, looking at it from the street, there was a notation of roof dry wells. Do we know where the water goes from those dry wells, or does it just percolate down into the ground?
Scott, could you answer that?
Yeah, it goes into the ground. That's the idea with the dry wells, is to put the water into the ground.
Okay, so that may explain why there's water at the rear of 13 Sandpiper when you look on the other side of that retaining wall where those arborvitaes were planted. And I think I see the neighbor actually on the call, so he may want to speak more to this, but would that water from those dry wells actually contribute to that water intrusion into this adjacent property? That seems to be maybe an explanation, because when we were there and we looked, we saw there wasn't actually any standing water, but it was obviously that there had been in a recent period. So those are just my two comments. But I think just one last thing is, I think this is a classic case of asking permission and begging forgiveness, which when I see this, it's kind of I find it kind of offensive that people come before the commission and then get approvals and then decide they're going to do other activity as well. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Are there any other questions? Like Matt had mentioned, I think there are some neighbors on. If now is their chance to speak, if they choose to do so. Okay, hearing none. The issue in front of us is whether to issue a second amendment request to the open order of conditions. And as of right now, I think, Georgia, I'm going to ask just a quick question. The public hearing it should be over now, right? So we should close that.
Yes, if you've already asked for public comment.
We've asked for public comment and there has none. So first of all, let's, if someone makes a motion, we'll close the hearing and then we'll deliberate the business at hand. So,
Mr. Chairman, could I just interject before we do that? I mean, I don't know if I'm ready to vote on this, if I need to go back out there.
well, no, Mike, I just want to close the hearing to either that or we're going to close or we're going to continue.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe we should continue.
All right, let me go around the board before we close the hearing, and I'm just going to try to get a consensus of where we're at. And I'll start. From what Matthew has alluded to, and I totally agree, what has been done here is, we granted permission to do certain work, and those plans were, I don't want to say ignored, but they were not followed to any close intent of the plans. So I'm of the mind I am not going to vote to approve an amendment. That being said, I'm going to go around the board and see what other kind of comments people have to offer. So Mike, I'll put you on the spot first.
Well, I'm not of a mind to approve, but if Scott wants to go back out there, continue this, and maybe able to take a closer look and ask some pointed questions that I don't think I was able to ask before, maybe I would reconsider, but as of today, I'm not in favor of approving an amendment.
Okay, I agree on the recite visit too, as well, Mike. Anne, any comment?
I agree with Mike. What we did go out to the on-site visit, but we really didn't, we were looking rather than getting answers to questions. And while Scott helped me a little bit, I still would like to be on site. I find that I understand much better what's going on and what people need. So I would not favor an amendment at this point.
Okay, Chelsea.
I'm of the same mind as everyone else. I feel like there's more that we should find out about this case before we go ahead and approve any amendments.
Okay, good. And just Georgia had asked that she be given the opportunity to just offer her comments before we close the hearing. So Georgia, now is your opportunity.
Thank you, Peter. I was just going to note that it would be best before the commission make any decision if they were to, that Danvers Engineering has final confirmation of anything that's happening on site before any work were to be kind of restarted or finished. I believe engineering's looking to see if the existing work now may trigger a minor stormwater permit under the new bylaw. So they're looking at that, and I've provided them the as-built plans. But as Scott had said, it's a process. So I want to make sure that process is confirmed and buttoned up before anything were to proceed with Concom, at least in our jurisdiction.
Okay, so is that it, Georgia?
Yep.
All right, so it sounds like we have a pretty solid consensus that we're not going to vote on an amendment. So I guess our next step is to continue this hearing.
Would you like to schedule a meeting on site? It sounds like you want to look at it again.
We have to do that first, and I don't know if we can do that right now.
I'd love to do it now while we're all together if we can. I'd appreciate that.
Georgia, do you think we can get this pulled off in the next 2 weeks?
The site visit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that should be a problem at all. It depends on members' availability, but.
And yeah, you're right. And Scott, your availability?
Not on a holiday Monday when I'm with my family.
Yeah, it's my
fault. Don't blame you there.
Apologies.
What is better for the commission members? Morning, evening? I'm usually at work by 7 a.m. I'm usually working until I get to these meetings with you at night. So
evening, Scott, just for the work people.
Well, we need the daylight.
Yeah, so, I
Next
mean,
Thursday, we don't have a meeting. We actually don't have a meeting for the next 2 Thursdays. We have a bit of a break. We could do next Thursday at 6 p.m.
I could do that.
Could we-
I don't know about the other members.
Could we possibly push that to like 5:30? I have a 7 o'clock hearing that night.
Peter, can you make a
I can-
5:30?
I can make 5:30. I think it's more pressing with Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea?
This is for the 29th.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to make that.
Well, then we need to.
5:30, the time, George, Chelsea, or the date?
Both. I usually don't get anywhere near Danvers until like around 6, and I made plans for Thursday night.
Is Tuesday the 27th a possibility?
That would work for me.
At 5:30?
Whatever time works for you.
Oh, because you don't have a meeting that night, right, Scott?
I'm free that night.
So you want to try for Tuesday at 6?
What about, well, is Chelsea available at 5:30 or no?
If it's 5:30 with Chelsea, we'll do 5:30.
Yeah, I might be like a little late, but I should be able to get there around 5:30.
Okay, yeah, and we'll
Okay.
just catch you up if you are a little late.
That works for me.
Okay.
All right, so Tuesday at 5:30. All right, so that means we can postpone until our next meeting, which is May the, let me go to my green book here.
13th?
May
Yeah,
13th.
Right.
Okay, so just one further thing one comment I want to make before we close the public hearing. Because we've had 1,500 square feet of wetlands that's been paved over. I think that the applicants should be thinking of some kind of mitigation to offset that. So that being said, just consider that and come to the next meeting with proposals, and we'll take it from there. All right, so if someone can make a motion that we close the we'll continue the public hearing, we'll take it from there.
I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing to our next meeting date, which is May 13th.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is it second?
I second the motion.
All in favor? Chelsea,
Hi.
Ann,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and Peter. Yes. Okay, folks, so we'll see you all again next Tuesday at 5:30.
5:30.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good night,
thank you.
Scott.
Thank you all.
Good night. Good night, folks.
Good night now.
Okay, I see next on the agenda, there's no minutes. So is there any old or new business, Georgia, that we need to consider?
No, there is not.
Great.
Okay, if someone wants to make that magic motion, we can call it an evening.
I make the motion that we conclude the Conservation Commission meeting.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll
I
second.
second the motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Chelsea,
Aye.
Ann,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and Peter. Yes. Okay, thank you all,
Thank you.
and we'll see
Okay.
you in 2 weeks.
Very
Oh,
good.
actually, no, we'll
Very
see you
good.
next week. I'm sorry.
Next, yeah, okay. Get it right, Peter.
And, uh,
All right. Good night,
Maybe,
everyone.
Good night
Georgia,
now.
maybe someone remind us
Night.
of an email.
Or Alicia will send a reminder.
Okay, great. Thank you all.